and welcome, and thank you all so much for joining us on this blustery Saturday night where South Dakota is sharing snow with us, and we're all glad this was scheduled tonight and not tomorrow, aren't we? Everybody wants the night out before we hibernate for a bit. So I'm Donna Merkt, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the South Dakota Art Museum and for this wonderful talk tonight celebrating the work of Dick Termes. I just want to say to everyone to thank you so much for all of our members and donors in the room, because South Dakota State University provides about 45% of our operating budget. When you give to the South Dakota Art Museum, you are giving directly to incredible programs and exhibitions and fun activities just like this one. So has anyone in the room take the Dick Termes free drawing workshop this week? All right, good. Learn to draw in 6-point perspective. Yeah. Anybody do free yoga in the gallery this week? Not as many bendy people in the audience, but there's a few. Okay. Well, thank you all for helping make those activities possible. I also want to give a quick shout out to our friends, the Haskells, who came all the way from Connecticut. So they got the farthest away prize. There you go. And the Haskells are the reason that we have the lovely Dakota sphere in our collection, which is the only sphere of Dick Termes' work that is in the museum collection that's in this exhibition. So thank you for making that possible, Haskells. We're so happy to have you here. All right, friends. With no further ado, I'm going to introduce Taylor McEwen, Curator of Collections and Exhibitions, who will introduce our distinguished guest.
Hi, everyone. I'll echo Donna's thanks in coming out, and I've had the joy of working with Dick for a week now. You've done a lot with us. We did a couple days of install. He's done student visits with SDSU students, community members. It's been a lot of fun, and we thank you for your time, Dick. Dick is esteemed within his home state as a longtime recipient of the South Dakota Arts Council Touring Arts Grant, and is an inductee into the South Dakota Hall of Fame. He holds a bachelor's degree in education from Black Hills State University in Spearfish, a master's degree from the University of Wyoming, and a Master of Fine Arts from the Otis College of Art and Design in Los Angeles. His home is in Spearfish, where his Termesphere gallery attracts art enthusiasts from far and wide. I visited for the first time in the past year, and encourage you all to do the same. Please help me in welcoming Dick.
Figure out where to put this. There. All right. No, I don't want that to go away. Can you hear me? All right. It's right. All right. Good. Boy, I'm so pleased to see the numbers here. This is so cool. It just makes the trip worthwhile, and I hope I don't drive you nuts, because I can create Termesphere headaches really easily. So, but what I'm going to do today is talk about what's up above in the gallery, but a lot of other work too, because I've been doing this for, I think we're in 54 years or something like that now, and. But even before that, I was painting on the flat to try and figure out the sphere, you know? And so I've been in the process of painting for many, many years. And I every day I still go out to the studio about nine in the morning or so after coffee, and go out until about 6 at night. So I really enjoy that time. I tell Marky, my wife, who's back over here, that if I can just be in the studio, that's where I like to be, because that's where all the cool ideas come from. And it's just it's an amazing life when you get to have a life like mine, where you get to spend your days playing with your mind, playing with ideas. I mean, how can you beat that? Yeah, that's just unreal to get to do that. And you can see by the kind of artwork I do that my brain jumps all over the place. You know, it isn't just doing one particular kind of thing. I just always I loved all the arts. I mean, any kind of art I see, if it's done well and high quality, I really love it, you know, and I like to try all of that too. So I mean, I jump all over the place with my ideas. And so I'm gonna just go through some of the pieces here. And some of them take a little bit of time because it's so, what these are videos. So it's like the old days when you did slide presentations, but now you can do video presentations. I'm hoping that'll come up. All right, here we are. I guess I just pushed the wrong button. So, you know what my gallery is a lot different than here. I like this much better because it spreads stuff out, gets it down to eye level where you can see all of it. And you can see the variety of different things I enjoy. Even I'm also into the geometry. I love three-dimensional geometries because they all help me with ideas for my paintings. You know, if a lot of people go to the landscape to find their ideas, I find a lot more of them actually playing around with geometry of the sphere, you know, playing with all the polyhedron. I just find a lot of cool stuff there. And what I like about it is, it seems like you start off with a universal something, you know, that's a universal connection between all the planets, if there's life out in the universe, the platonic solids, those kinds of things would be important to them too. They wouldn't, one time I got to do a commission to Doane College to the math department. And I ended up after studying all the stuff, and I'm really a bad mathematician, I might add that. But after studying all the kinds of thinking that they do, I called the piece Math Is, because it's just, it isn't like a lot of other subjects where, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe this is the answer. You read history, whoever wrote the history books is a history, but in math, it just is whatever it is, it's right, you know, and I something about that, it turns me on for my art pieces. So this kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of where it goes. This one is in the gallery, and this is a great one for the virtual. If you haven't tried the virtual reality, what it does is it puts you in the sphere, and you actually get to be inside this, looking north, turn around, you see the other side of the ball, and you get to be in these environments. One of the things that's taught me is that's probably what I've been doing with my whole life, is creating environments. I haven't been painting on balls or spheres. I've been painting total environments around me, because that's the way I think about this stuff, is if this is north, the other side of the ball is south. And when you get in that virtual, you actually get to be in that world. So it's really kind of fun. Now, another thing I like about the virtual is it fits with a lot of what the museums are doing today. Like Van Gogh, there's a virtual little world of Van Gogh and Monet and all the great artists. They're playing with that, but they never, like my niece, Bonnie, told me one time, she says, you've been doing virtual reality before there was virtual reality. Like many years before that even. So it's kind of cool to actually get to join it after I've kind of played in that arena a lot. So this is also one of the virtuals, but this is Saint Denis in northern Paris. And it's one of my favorite pieces because it captures an incredible cathedral that and you get to see what it's like when you actually experience being in it. You see everything above you, all the way around you, and everything below you from one fixed point in space. And so this is like a good example of why 6-point perspective is a useful tool too. And it's been fun. I just got back from San Francisco. I've been working on the Grace Cathedral. On when you look at San Francisco, the cathedral that's up on the hill. I was in that. Marky and I were out there. We were in that for 15 days, working on a sphere about this size, and have it pretty nailed. I need a lot more color and stuff like that, but it was fun to work there and to experience people coming by, looking and going, you know, I wish I would have had it developed like I did the last 2 days, all the way through those 15 days, because when they look at a pure ball and a couple sketches on it, it doesn't turn them on, you know, so. Now, this is one that's up here also, and it's playing with the perspective. Each one of these artists are doing a 6 different system of perspective. It starts off with 1 point. This is up to 4 point, and this is a panoramic 4 point. So it's like what your phone will do. If you play with your panoramic on your phone, you get a 4 point perspective. It goes all the way around, comes back where it starts from. But this breaks down the system towards a grid. When I teach perspective, which I got to do here a couple days ago, I got to teach 1 through 6 point perspective to what, 40 people, which is was a great group. And we went through all of this perspective, but these guys are looking here at the canvas, but they're getting their subject matter from behind the canvas. So like the hemisphere guy here is like a fisheye lens, and he's getting half of a ball. He's getting what I get in a 6 point perspective. He's getting a full half of it. And this one I like because it's, when you look at it, first you think it's birds in a cage, right? Does it look like birds in a cage? So who's in the cage? You are, aren't you? You're the one in the cage and the birds are out there free. So it's kind of does a reversal, because it actually is doing what I always think is happening with the sphere is you're living on the other side of what you're dealing with. Like the cube that you're in, that you're looking at out here, is actually on the other side, and you're actually floating in this cubical space in between. And all of these birds are kind of looking in at you like, aha, finally you're in here and I'm outside. This is also up there. I didn't realize all this first part is all up there. So this one plays with the concept of when I look at a ball and I'm painting on it, I think of it as concave, but I'm painting on the inside surface, but the inside just keeps coming around to where I capture everything that's around me. So you can see half the ball is that concave, the other half is the convex. So, but it's all one room. It's the 2 halves of one room. And that's what that one is. This was playing with that. And so the subject matter is kind of an educational tool. These, you've seen about 3 different transparent ones up there. This is one I sold a while back, but it's what's interesting is when you look in these holes that are here, and they're like mirror reflections or reflections in windows, you actually are getting a true reflection of that room, but you're getting it from the back side of the inside of the ball. So because the back side of the inside of the ball is what's behind you, right? So when you actually look at that image that you're seeing there, it's what would be behind you, but it's also on the other side of the ball. So it's actually makes a kind of a weird sense. And so and how I do these, it's important to have you know, when I paint on these transparent ones, I paint them all, everything on there is painted on the outside. So what I do is paint the inside image, what I want to show up on the inside, on the outside of the ball first, and then I paint over that with a lot of white paint. So it totally makes it disappear what I have, but it's all, what I painted first is always showing up from inside anyway. and then I paint over that with the outside part. So it's a fun experiment. I mean, to see if you can, what you can say, because you can say things when you think about insideness and outsideness, how many concepts in the world play with that arena of thinking. I think that's what's fun about the sphere is when I first got into it, I was just like blown away by what it would do, just like the effect of it. But then pretty soon I realized, you know, I can talk about spherical ideas, spherical concepts better than I could on the flat because it's already there, you know, it's that. So the sphere kind of demands certain things when you pay attention to it. It wants to play with spherical ideas. It doesn't, if an idea can be done better on the flat, do it on the flat. But if it's a spherical idea and you're thinking about the total visual space around you and the concept works better there, then it should be on the sphere. So that's kind of the way I play with it. And I like to think that I listen to the sphere. It sounds weird, but I suppose a flat canvas person listens to his canvas too, but the sphere talks, it says some interesting things. Then it also has interesting geometries. This is coming out of 30 rhombuses, which is a rhombic triicontohedron, just in case you wanted to know. But oh, here, this one I love a lot. Okay, this is telling you what 6-point perspective is. You see, you were looking at one point, turn around the circle, that's 2-point perspective right there. Okay, and then see this road crossing? And a car almost gets me there, but you look down that way, that's a 3rd point of perspective. And then if you turn around, it's also, this is spherical thinking, okay? That's the 4th point. And then see this telephone pole running up and down right here? It goes to a point directly above your head. And if you follow it down, it goes right below your feet. That's 6-point perspective. But if you fill it in with buildings, it still runs to 6 different points. And if you shift to the side, and no matter where you're located, it's still 6 equal distant points. I thought at one time, okay, I'm gonna just take these 6 perfect points around the ball and shift 5 of them to one side and do one point over here. And it worked, but everything was really weirdly distorted. And so then I finally realized if I'm gonna be honest to it, to the sphere and what it can do in perspective, they have to be equal distance. So in other words, you carry your 6 points with you all the time. If I were gonna do a sphere of this cubical building, if we think of this as a wall, that's a wall, ceiling, floor. If I were to stand here, what's interesting is I know where the 6 vanishing points, I can close my eyes and tell you where the 6 vanishing points are located in this building. And it's always the closest from my eye to that wall, that plane, to this plane, to this plane, to this plane, to this plane. That's where the vanishing points are. And if you move over here, your vanishing points move with you. And the building shifts slightly. And on a sphere, you draw like one little corner of what I have and everything else is dictated. It's all set up. That's why the math guys like this stuff, I think, because it's taking, you know, since we kind of forgot about perspective in the past, you know, it was so serious for many years, 15th century. It was like, if you were an architect or an artist, you didn't have any education if you didn't understand perspective. And then it kind of in the modern arts got thrown to the side a little bit. But I think, you know, when I brought it back with the sphere, and did it kind of in a serious way, a lot of the math people and the architects and stuff started going, oh, there's something going on here over in the arts. Well, I kind of like that. I thought, but this is fun because it's playing with inside and outsideness of a sphere. But what I did was, yeah, this is the one I actually painted this picture with, see that cubical stuff right there? That's on the inside of the ball. And I did that to start with thinking that was the finished product. I never did like it. Finally, what I did was put these circles around the sphere, different sizes, and then I left that clear and painted a cubical world that these people lived in that were relating to the circles. And what happens, of course, is you can see there's motion in those circles. And it's because it's on the inside of the ball. The cubical blue world is on the inside of the ball. So when you move the front surface around, it looks like there's things moving across it. It's really a weird piece. I really got off on it. This is it's in Sioux Falls now, the bank. What's the name of the bank? Reliant Bank, yeah. They're the ones that bought it. So if you ever want to go down, it's on I think it's the southern end of Sioux Falls. It hangs right in the center of their place. So it's one of my favorites. I just really liked how it's almost accidentally how it happened. Then I played off of it with this piece where it's Indra's net. It's a philosophy of that the world is all held together by this intricate, in science, it would be, what do they call it? When we have the theory of everything. A lot of scientists, Stephen Hawkins, everybody, all the big boys have tried to figure out what the whole essence of the universe is about, what the nitty gritty is. And this plays with it in a philosophical, there I am, peeking in. It's fun. A lot of my stuff plays off of geometrical systems. This plays with how a cube fits into a dodecahedron. And you can get 5 cubes that float inside a dodecahedron, which is 12 pentagons. And there's a certain system how the cube fits with it. So that's what that piece kind of grew from that. This is a piece in Spearfish. It's an outside piece, which I don't do very often, but they wanted it on their clock tower in Spearfish. So I did a special, I had to go to the sign painters and talk to him about what kind of paint do you use that lasts a long time outside, because I'd done a lot of murals and they fade out really bad quickly. So he told me how to mix the paint with the epoxy sort of paint. And then I went to the car guys to fix up cars, and they sprayed clear coat like you do over a paint job on a car, but they gave it like 2 different coats of that. So it's held up very well. I'm very pleased with it, but it's a strange piece. I love the stairways because it's real perspective-y stuff, and it's either works or it doesn't, if you don't do it right. And that's how it kind of, there we are. That's how it works. So actually my son you'll see him down below, he's turning a crank, and the crank actually turns out and makes the ball spin. So anybody that goes by can spin the ball by turning this crank on the bottom. There he is, he's being very serious about it. Dad doesn't want me to screw up on this one, he's saying. All right. Well, this is a fun concept because I use 6 points of perspective, but what I wanted to do on this is relate the senses of man to the 6 points of perspective. So each one, like this is a visual person, and you can see the eye, nose, ear, and mouth, and everything vanishes into the eye. So his dominant sense is visual. The next one is an audio person. He's probably a musician if you're using it all the way to the extreme, and it goes into his ear. This is like a cook, a baker or something, that everything's going into his mouth, and this is smelling, the smell sense. There's a profile there. So the trees turn into faces, and then on the bottom is touch. So there's a hand like this, and everything goes into that fingertip. There's the thumb, there's the finger, and then the bent 3 fingers. And all of the structure of the world that they're living in goes to that sense. And then on the top is intuition. It's like all the senses, we don't really know what they do. And I needed an extra sense anyway, because I have 6 points. So that's what that one's kind of about. It's kind of a fun. Well, this is one I did for a guy in Texas, but he used to live in the Black Hills. And he came by, he's an engineer, he was an engineer down in the Gulf Club area. And so he wanted it to do with the Black Hills. So I did 24 scenes of the Black Hills, kind of winding and tying them all together in this piece. And then he came to me, and he's a motorcyclist, and he wanted his motor. He didn't want to say it, but he hinted strongly that he wanted. I'm sorry, stall it right there. He wanted himself to be on his motorcycle in this piece. And I said, you know, that would really distract from all of the beautiful stuff in the Black Hills. And then they have a motorcycle up in there. That's kind of pushes it a little. But I said, why don't you let me hide you in it? I'll hide you in the birch trees. And do you see a motorcyclist in the birch trees there? Raise your hand if you see it. All right. Can you see it? So here's the guy's head with blue goggles and blue hair and yellow face. Okay. And then this is the front of his bike. This is the front tire. Right there, and the windshield is there, and the lights here. So, but you know, and this guy took me up to the canyon and said, I'm going to be buried right here, he said. So I'm under this tree, and I want this mountain and stuff. And I said, well, I'll put that in the piece. That'd be cool. That could represent the canyon. Well, the bad part of this was his son called me up and said that he was out riding his motorcycle and got killed on his motorcycle. So you kind of go, ah. And then he said, and I think he wants to be buried in South Dakota somewhere, and I don't know where. I said, I know where. He took me right to the spot. So it was kind of an interesting twist of events, you know, to actually do a piece where he's right there saying, oh, this is where I want to be, and this is what I love in the canyon, and then to have him actually die, and yeah, it's good. That's too real, you know, that kind of stuff. All right, then some of this stuff is just fun. To see if you can pull it off, you know, like this of course comes out of a very strong geometry, but then I laid in the circles to going to infinity on that side, and I decided to not have it be monotonous, to break it apart on the other side, so it turns into this kind of weaving type of structure, just to. You know, it's mostly just to see what it's going to turn into, what it's going to look like. So it makes it really a fun experience. And the geometry world kind of helps feed that. Now, this is just the opposite, totally. This is the other side of the brain that I like to see if I still have that right side of the brain that artists are supposed to have. So what I do on these is I do an abstract expressionistic painting on the piece. I don't want any realism in it, nothing that you recognize until I get it all dries. And you can see I drip paint down it. I just let the paint run down just for the fun of it, and then let all that dry. And then I came back and I actually painted the drips so they look like drips. and then I looked to see what I can find, these like faces like this with the hair back here and the lady here. And it's just like a strange pointed nose person there, birds coming in, that person up there, this person over here, but also this back is actually another person. And you just see what you can find and not overdo it, you know, not finish it off, just get enough of a glimpse to where I know other people might see what I saw. And because why I do that is you can get so much more into it. You can have 10 faces and animals and creatures and subconscious stuff going on instead of just one thing. So it just I think it makes it a lot more fun when it's like looking at clouds. And if the cloud actually made a full dragon and it was all there, it wouldn't be as cool as just a part of a dragon showing up in your imagination, filling in the rest of it, right? So that's what, and I do one of these every now and then just to see what strange stuff is in my head. I'm just fascinated with that. Okay, this is our home. This is like actually the gallery part. We have 7 domes now in geodesic domes on our 3 acres of land. And this kind of shows, because a lot of people are fascinated. These domes are a little different. What I realized after building the first one, it's nice to get it up off the ground a little bit. So I started building like cubicle structures underneath, and then the ceiling becomes the floor of the dome. So it's kind of like a little toadstool kind of thing, looking places. Okay, this one is at the Cultural Center in Pierre of Lewis and Clark. And I call it Against the Current because those guys pulled those boats all the way against the current, all the way to the Pacific Ocean, basically. And this was quite a feat. So this takes from the very bottom. It shows the St. Louis, and then all the boats and the natives that they ran into, the different animals that they saw along the way that were unique to them. The natives knew all about them already, most of it. Of course they did. And then we get to the Pacific Ocean up on the top. And so those are fun because I get to study up on all this stuff, read about what happened and try and think of images that tell the story too. I might be doing one. I just talked to a guy from Bozeman that's he's a clock guy, clock man. He fixes your watches and stuff, but he's really, really extremely good. And he wants me to do one on time, how time works, not just watches and clocks, but where it all comes, where the concept comes from, like the day and night and all the winter, summer, fall, and how we as humans have to try and figure out how do we play with the concept of time. And I think it'd be really cool. I'm really excited about it because it will be a good study for me. So you can see a lot of the boats that they had. This is where, what's his name, Sergeant Floyd died on that, but he's the only one in the whole bunch. Okay, this one plays with geometry too. A lot of times I like to do the geometry and then look at it like you would look at clouds. Instead of having it be organic like that one, it's actually a highly structured thing, and then you look and try and find realistic stuff in it. And that's where this came. This is all circles running through the whole thing, and then halfway another circle overlaps it, and it goes to infinity on the bottom, and then it gets big in through here. That little boy with the boat, I like him the best. And then it goes to infinity of little circles up on the top. So what I do is I force myself to look at the patterns and see what I can find in them. And nothing gets to exist in that piece unless it fits with the structure. And I think that's really interesting. I'm sure other artists do that, even in a landscape. They start with, and they use a certain system of how they want to do something, and they know they have to stick with that rhythm of whatever they're doing all the way through. This just clarifies it a little bit more when you're dealing with this. Well, this was a piece I talked to the hospital in Aberdeen about doing a piece with them. And I said, so what is it you do? What do you think in a big pattern, what is it you do? They said, well, we take care of people from birth to death. is basically taking care of people from those two things. I said, that's a good theme. Let me just stick with that as the theme. So I have stairways, and somewhere on the other side, there's I think of it as a Michelangelo explosion of clouds, and stairways are coming out of it. On one side, babies are coming out of that. On the other side, old people are going back into it. And so it's a life and death there. But as the young people go out, they climb these stairs going up and down, and they go through all the different periods of life that we do. You get a job at one time, you get your education, you get a job, you go through all of that kind of stuff until you retire like us, like me. Yeah, I don't retire, but so anyway, and then you go back into that hole. It's a nice, gentle way to talk about that stuff, I think. And I was impressed that they would let that be in their hospital. I don't know if they explain it to people. They probably don't. That's what I just sold to South Dakota Public Broadcasting, because I did of 24 classes in drawing with them. And I did 7 videos on perspective with them. And this piece I did from my drawing, what I teach in the drawing, and just did this whole thing, and they just wanted to keep it. So they have it to show what's in that video. And it just shows the cube, cylinder, and the sphere, and all the kinds of stuff that can come out of that, the creative stuff. So that's what that one's about. This is the drawing. And all you have to do, if you don't have that address, is just say Dick Termes Drawing Class, South Dakota Public Broadcast, and it'll pop right up too. Same thing with the perspective. And those are free to the public. There are no cost to them at all. And well, this is a fun one. This is Dancing Against Time. So it's a transparentness. What I get to do with the transparent, I get to see the front of the people and the back of the people, and have them, they're holding hands and dancing hard, so that if they dance hard enough, they don't fall into that evil spiral that's sucking us all in. So that the friendship and dance hard, that's my advice. See. But it's fun. You know, the hardest part of this were those feet. After I painted the backside on the front side, and then I painted it over white, it's like a white silhouette, and you have to go, how do you get the feet to go with the people going this way, you know, or that way? And that was the trickiest part. This one, I'm going to go to the next one because it's faster. And it's called Politically Correct. It's in the show. If you look close, when they go around the corner, the elephants turn into donkeys, donkeys turn into elephants, but also they're both doing their balancing act of staying in office. And also what fits really well is the rear end of one is the head of the other. And I think they would all agree with that. And this, I started this, actually, Marky's mother had a little horse, a little wooden horse on her mantle. And she said, while you're here, why don't you touch that up a little bit? And so I got my paints out and was working on it. When I turned it to the backside, I was thinking, well, should I have the other side of the horse on it? And the other side of the horse looked like an elephant more than it. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just do an elephant on this side. And then with playing, changing the shape slightly in this way and that way, I was able to get it to be a donkey and an elephant, which fits with our American world pretty well. This one is called The Big Bang. And it's actually just circles of black, white, and then overlapping like explosion of circles over the top. When you look close at it, it really looks like it's a bubble almost on it that's making that kind of stuff happen. But I got a call from France on this piece, and they said, we want to put this on the cover of a book. And I said, okay, who? It was Stephen Hawkins. They wanted to put it on Stephen Hawkins' book in French, the French version. And I think you'll see it here. I have the book there. This is the sphere, And it's the brief history of time as in French. So I'm in France. But isn't that cool to get that? I mean, I thought it was some of my friends just kidding me. Talking, so I was like, and then pretty soon he said, well, we'll pay you for it. And I said, oh, you mean this is real? Huh? So that was pretty fun. This was a piece I did of Wrigley Field. I was wherever Tom, yeah, we were talking about this because they're from Chicago. And so she and he would come up to me all the time and he would always say, Termespheres, you have to do Wrigley Field, you have to do Wrigley Field. And then he never commissioned me for it, so it never happened. But then after he passed away about a year, she came back to me and she says, you know, Tony always wanted you to do Wrigley Field. I said, yeah, I was really sad about that. He said, no. She says, I'm not as cheap as he is. Let's do it. So I got to go to Chicago and do Wrigley Field, which is delightfully fun. And then this is her son. So I put a lot of people she knew in the audience because I thought, why have Chicago people? Why not have people she knows, you know, that are sitting around her? So a lot of these people, I put my dad in here. That was put my dad in. She made me put me in. She says, I'm not paying you the last payment unless you put yourself in there. This is a study in optical illusions. When I was at University of Wyoming, I took a class in optical illusions, a whole semester. And it's the best class I've ever had. And what it taught me was if you have an enclosed shape like that, that'll be a positive space. This will be background. But if you put a human face in anything, it like takes over. So there's a fight between the human face and the enclosed form of the blackbird that I was trying to see if they would make people really, their mind fight to see both things. And I do a lot of optical illusion stuff like this. There's a black and white one up here that you'll enjoy watching because I'll bet there's 100 different faces in there. I probably better ask if you have any questions because I think my wife says I'm running out of time. Any questions from anybody? Okay.
What do you use for your basic sphere and what paints do you use?
I use it's a polyethylene plastic globe and it would be a light fixture. If I didn't get to the factory, they'd probably have a big hole drilled in it. But I get it out of the factory, but polyethylene is really a tough, can stand it. One fell at the art center in Sioux Falls, 60 feet onto the ground, didn't break. So it's tough. But the others are acrylic too. The transparent ones have to be acrylic to get them that transparent.
What paint do you use that will stick to that surface?
Acrylics, but when I do the polyethylene, I take my sander and just rough it all up. And then after it's really rough, I paint about 5 coats of paint and then sand it back to smooth. So it like you're hinting there, it takes a little bit of extra to get the paint to stick right, but that works really well. And I rough it up with heavy duty sandpaper. Was there a question? I thought, okay, that's that. Yes.
I'm fortunate enough to have your 6 senses at home in my
Oh,
collection.
very
but
good.
It's a reproduction. And I think you said it was a screen print. And
Yep,
I've always
okay.
been fascinated how you ever got that to be done.
Okay.
And then if new technology is where you can do more.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because when I first started, the computer wasn't around to help you do much, you know? And so what I figured out how to do with the help of a guy, a good friend of mine that's in Philadelphia that used to make earth globes with plastic and silk screening them and make earth globes. And so we figured out that if I paint the sphere like a normal sphere on an acrylic ball with a seam in it, so I can pop it in half easily, put it in the ovens and physically melt them down, that hopefully they'll shrink in the proper way, so that if I copy that image once that's done and make silkscreen print it on plastic and then heat those up and blow them back up into hemispheres, trim them off and stick them back together. That's what you have. So it's a comfortable. Well, and it luckily shrunk down, right? But I think it's because the melting point of acrylic paints and the ball, which is acrylic, melted together, so it kind of collapsed, which was just pure luck. I mean, I didn't know the chemistry that what I was dealing with. But now the computer can do that. We go take well, at one time we did 14 pictures around the sphere. Now we found that 6 is enough. If you take 6 pictures like a cube, like it was a cube, straight into it, and then there's programs that help you make it into a virtual sphere. And then that sphere can be divided in half and flattened out. You can manipulate with the computer, can manipulate all that stuff. And it really helps me. I don't have to, have any, like I have St. Peter's Cathedral and that Six Senses one were both flattened out. I mean, and people don't want a flattened out thing. They want it to be a ball. So, yeah, that's how that's done. Yes.
Is it difficult to teach that 6 perspective to students, or something they work on and it finally clicks, or tell?
I'll do it like when I taught 8 years in Germany with our military high school kids for a week. And all the military high school kids were siphoned out the best. We got the best kids. It's called Creative Connections. And all the top kids would come to this one place with like 120 of them in all the fine arts. So I got to have 15 students for like a week long, every day, all the day long. And these kids would work into the nights. I mean, they've never quit. Well, it wore me out real fast, but anyway, well, I would take them all the way to the 6 points on the sphere. So by the time they got done, they would take a sphere home that was really cool stuff, and a lot of them were we'd go down into the German towns and a lot of them would capture those scenes that they were experiencing being over in Germany, which is fun. But it takes me like a quick workshop is hard to do that. I need a good amount of time because I don't want them to not know 1, 2, and 3 point perspective if they're going to be doing a 6. They need to know where it all comes from, I think. Yeah. Yes.
Did you by chance watch the movie Interstellar? And if you did you like their depiction of the black hole, which is basically a 6 point perspective, like sphere that they used?
No, I don't. What's it called again?
Interstellar?
I've heard people tell me that, but I don't think I have seen it.
They depict it as you're looking at a universe as you look
Oh,
around
really?
you on the outside of a spherical object.
Oh, I'll have to look at that. Maybe it's,
I bet you would enjoy it.
yeah.
Maybe you can get some royalties.
Yeah. Yes.
Is there anybody else doing this kind of work? Have you trained anybody to carry on after you?
I've taught a lot of workshops and stuff. I don't know of anybody doing anything out there that they said, I'm sure there could be. I hope so. You don't discover a school of art unless somebody follows you, right? So you kind of hope somebody actually is paying attention to it. And, with all of, that was part of my motivation to do the perspective for South Dakota Public Broadcasting. I want people to know how to do it if they want to, so it kind of lays it out for them. Because I'm 82, so it's, you're gonna run into a dead end somewhere along the way. And I don't want this to all go with me. I want it to be out there. And South Dakota Public Broadcasting has been great that way because they've taken a couple of my best workshops and done extremely good video presentations of them. So any other thoughts? Yes.
Yeah, when you're working with like buildings or geometric shapes, how do you determine your light source and shadows? Is it within each geometric?
Yeah, because you can play with them in a million ways. So you just start playing. Yeah. Now this one is actually South Dakota Images. So I traveled around South Dakota. It's 5.5 foot in diameter. It's a big one. So I traveled around the state and took photographs and then I pieced it all together. So the difference is northern South Dakota's on the upper part of the ball, southern South Dakota's on the bottom, and then the Missouri splits us in half. But Sioux Falls is actually connected over with Spearfish, because I had to take the square or rectangular thing and stick it together, so that's the one flaw. It kind of swings across.
That hanging somewhere?
That's in Rapid City at the convention center, in the theater section of the convention center there. Yes.
Would you consider yourself a storyteller?
I probably am, not as good as my wife, she tells much better stories than I do.
Are you telling a story on the globe?
Oh, yeah, every one, but they're kind of peculiar stories, some of them come out of math ideas and, some of them, the ones, the commissions, a lot of times take me astray a little bit, but a lot of them I actually like a lot, compared to other pieces I do. So sometimes when people try and pull me their way and also help finance it, I learn a lot of new things, so it's pretty fun. Yes.
Where is your spearfish clock one located, the one on top of the clock?
Oh, it's right down Spearfish, Hudson and Main Street. It's on that. Okay.
We stop at your shop every time we're out there, so.
Yeah, if you drive down Main Street, you'll see it. It sits right there. The lady that was the head of the roads and everything, when she built the clock tower, I didn't know this because I was always kind of moaning and groaning about what that clock tower just doesn't look right, And then finally I went to talk to her about something else. She says, I want to talk to you about doing a sphere for the clock tower. And I thought, whoa, that's I've been moaning and groaning about that clock tower, and now I have to like it because it's not. So see, I actually have the money put aside already. By the time she went to the city council, they said, well, where do we find the money for this? She says, I already have it. I pulled it from this and that. So it's really, really very cool. Yes.
Have you ever done a piece that you would never part with? I ask that of every artist that I meet.
Well, what I have a tendency to do is raise the price on it. And then if somebody wants to take it away from me, I know at least I made something from it. But yeah, there's a few of them that I would like not to sell. No, I just do. Those prices are a little higher. The one with all the perspective up here, the 1 through 6 point that the artists are doing, that price is a little higher than a lot of the others, but it's because, you have to pay me to take it away from me. Yes.
What's going to help you to make your next inspired work happen? What would be the top of your list?
Now say that again.
What would be your next most inspired piece that if someone were to give you the money?
To do one that I really want to do myself. Well, that was kind of what I was doing out in San Francisco. I decided after we kind of couldn't find people to finance it, I said, I'm gonna just go do it. I want to do that piece, and it'd be fun to be in San Francisco a little bit and be forced to be there. And I always love to go into towns into famous places like Paris. I did 4 different pieces from Paris just because we wanted to be in Paris. So it gave us an excuse to be there, But I don't know. I don't know if I was just gonna make up one. I probably would have done it, but I'm already, because I do a lot of stuff that I want to do. I don't always do what people want. In fact, most of the time I do what I want. And then I just hope somebody out there has a similar sort of brain and they want it. Yeah. Well, maybe one more question.
When you first started out, was there something that happened to you?
No, that's okay.
Wrong. In your when you are resting, when you are asleep, when you were a younger person, how did this come to you? Did you see something and then it propelled you to keep going?
You know,
Because I know you must have gotten no's. I know people had to look at your work and say, huh? And so what is there in you that made you say, I like this, I have it?
You know, I was just thinking of when I was just out of high school and a little bit of college. I lived in with my parents' place. They had a wooden or an old rock house that was right back behind, small little place, good studio. So I turned it into a studio, and I remember a couple things happened when I was in there. One thing is I painted a pointillist like George Seurat painting, 5 foot by 8 foot in diameter. For no reason, I just wanted to do that. I wanted to see why he got hooked into that kind of style of painting. So I just spent like 2 years on that painting, off and on, you know. And then another thing that turned me on to the arts anyway, was I would collect books. I'd go out to auctions and collect all these old books. And I remember one time sitting in there, opening a book and thinking, I'm actually going into somebody else's mind, and they've lived a life pretty strong because they wrote this whole book. And it just sort of turned me on to the idea that how can you leave a mark in the world? You know, like this guy wrote this book and it's leather bound. I bought it because it was cool looking, you know. I didn't know what was in it. But then I start to read it, and somebody actually put the energy and time into that to live forever, you know? And so it's kind of our way to survive after the fact, you know? The arts are good for that. I mean, that's what we're really good at, is being able to make a mark, and so hopefully it keeps popping back up. And whether it's poetry, music, puppetry, you know, if people come up to my wife and talk about seeing her show, and they're like, they've got their grandparents now, and they you know, it's just like, see, she's made her mark, you know, that's cool. And so that, I don't know, I think that kind of stuff, and ever since I've always felt, you know, you have to put everything into this piece, everything into it, so that it survives, you know, so that if somebody doesn't like the theme, but they like the colors, they won't throw it away, you know, or something like that. And the geometry, if it doesn't appeal with the geometrical level that some math type minds like, then there's images, there's stories to the images and all of that stuff that other people will appeal to other people. So that's the way my mind works anyway. I better quit. I think we're running over the top. Thank you guys very much.
I think none of us were really ready for that to end. Very fascinating. Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you all so much for being here. For our sponsors, SDSU, South Dakota Arts Council, thank you all so much for helping make this happen. We still have a little bit of time. If you haven't tried the VR yet, do not run, walk. Okay, it's really very fascinating. The exhibition is going to be up for a few months. We have some other exciting things coming up. So I think the staff has prepared some upcoming events cards for you all. So make sure you get yours before you head out the door. Do we still have food upstairs, or are we all cleared up? Do we know?
I think they're probably packed.
Okay, so can't go Jan. Sorry, and go Jan. Go Jack. Always go Jack. That's right. All right. Thank you for being here, and we will not run you out quickly. Okay.